Hey, what's up,
Um,
Zuby? Yeah, I was listening to the your everything you were saying in the space yesterday, and I'll be honest, I had never heard of you until I listened to that space because I don't know if you just weren't very public or I didn't see you in the Discord or on Twitter.
Yeah, I was listed on the website for a while. My name and picture was up there, but when they were going around asking if we wanted to be up there, I was like, I don't really care. Like, I got hired on at the company. My previous company and game was absorbed, and my whole purpose was to finish that. That's where all my passion and care was, and really whatever was going on with the drama, or whether it was drama or positive hype or whatever it was, I was just not kind of focused on the wider community. I was just focused on what I was doing in the company. And yeah, I think that kind of left me unnoticed, which, believe it or not, I was actually the longest hired employee at Safemoon besides John. I was there for about around, or like, I think it was like 2 years and a month. And so, yeah, I was I lasted the longest out of everyone, but that's because I was just in my own corner doing my own thing with my team, building that stuff. And yeah, that's kind of where I was at.
Just to kind of like summarize, if I can, and kind of what I'm curious about, and I think a lot of people might be curious about is what we see from Jonas and really everybody who leaves is not that they come out and go, "Oh gosh, guys, the NDA stopped me and John's stealing for money and he's making fun of you guys behind your back." Like we don't see that. We see like, no, it comes off as very professional, but then you start to realize that he's incompetent and that he's just not doing things right and that he's making all the decisions. And so, would that be accurate assessment of your time there? Is not that you could see any blatantly obvious fraud, but that you just saw one man controlling everything and basically ruining everything. Would you say because of his ego?
Yes, so I think that's a fair representation. So I mean, the only part of the team that I had few interactions with was the sales team, but everyone else who went through the company I had interactions with, and I mean, yeah, there wasn't ever anything I saw or even heard of or was really talked about as far as any actual illegal activity. Or there was people that were talking about how John was spending 20,000 a month on a apartment in London for his girlfriend, and he was taking flights all the time, and he had a house. He bought a mansion, and possibly was buying something else, and was going out for expensive dinners. I mean, like, I heard all of this stuff from employees that have seen that, but as far as like John's taking this money, or these accounts are doing this, or here's how this is happening, that was never mentioned or talked about by anyone, including John. Um, and mainly, I think that was probably because my gauge would be like most of the blatant stuff was done way back with like the pre V2, where, like, probably a bunch was taken from the LP. And then I think after that, once everyone got their big pot of money, they kind of were like, oh, let's maybe do something legit now. And or let's maybe like let's try and make it look like it's legit now, right? Like,
That
let's
that
pretend
reminds
we
me
never
of
did anything wrong. What's that?
Josh Chilcott's quote during one of the SafeMoon 32s was, "I think we've pivoted from what can we take to what can we give."
Right. Yeah. That's kind of the thing, is like, oh, hey, we've all got a bunch of money. Now let's see if maybe possibly we can do some stuff. And then, John obviously is getting paid a ton. So his incentive is keep this thing going for as long as humanly possible, because guess what? My salary is massive as the CEO. So that's where his incentive is coming from. And my experience is that there was tons being worked on, but John's pure just foolishness and incompetence as a CEO. And it's not like he was incompetent in every way. There was good interactions that I remember seeing from him, but I would say like 90% of the time it was more kind of like face palm. Like, really, like, oh my gosh, like, what are you talking about? What are you doing? And then as well, there was no follow up with anything. It was like things would get started, and then there was no things would get started and announced, and there was no real incentive push inside the company from John to actually finish anything. And a lot of it was more almost as if he didn't even want to finish anything, to be quite honest, because there was a lot of stuff that was being worked on that was done or close to done or had the opportunity to be done, and the ball would somehow get dropped. And I mean, I remember multiple times sending email after email like, hey, are we moving to the next step with this? Hey, here's this person that we're going to hire. Here's these things that we can acquire. And it was just like nothing ever got done. And so the buck stops with John. He's makes the final decision on everything, and when it comes to the actual final decision, he just never does anything. And so therefore nothing can actually get finished and done. Yeah, it was a very weird situation, very frustrating.
Because what you're talking about is John Caroni and doing all, and I was trying to get on the reasons because I don't know if you were here when I said this earlier, which was that I thought this when I was covering them in the past that, well, what if they put it out and it doesn't do well and then everybody gives up on the dream? Like, what if you put out Operation Phoenix Exchange and blockchain, price doesn't go crazy, everybody realizes that our products suck, we're not going anywhere? Maybe that was his fear, and that's kind of the feeling I was getting. But also outside of that, and I don't know, I'm sure you probably know this, and somebody, Jordan, JRD and K, sent me the clip, which I've been looking for a long time. I need to clip it and post it on Twitter. And it's John Crony going around giving speeches as if he's accomplished something. And I remember thinking, like, why is he giving speech? We haven't done anything yet. But during that interview, he says that one of the things that he learned in the past was storytelling and how he brought that to Safemoon, and it was about telling a story. And then it started to paint a picture in my mind that John Caroni thought that he was successful with Safemoon, not based on delivering anything, but based on his ability to convince people to believe in it through stories. And that seems to fit perfectly with what it is you're saying, that
Correct.
he would rather tell a story and then not put the bare minimum effort into delivering the what he's
Yeah.
promising.
Yeah, that is exactly the vibe. I've used this phrase the other day in Josh's space, but the best way that I would describe it is it felt like a lot of LARPing, like and I'm not sure if you guys know what that phrase is, but like it's like if you go to like a medieval fair and everyone's pretending like they're in medieval times and doing medieval things, and they're like role playing. It felt like John was role playing as a CEO. That was my vibe. But in meetings, I'm just like, what's happening here? Like like we're talking about a bunch of stuff, but like none of this feels real. Like why is he even pretending to like be serious about this? It was very bizarre. So I'm not sure what psychologically is going on there, or like whether he's fooling himself or whether he's actually playing a game, or whether maybe, I mean, a lot of times I was like, maybe he's serious, maybe he like genuinely like is trying to do something, but he's just so unbelievably incompetent and lazy. But then it's like, okay, he'll say things or do things that seem like he has some level of competence. So it was just such a bizarre scenario to be in. And yeah, I remember having like multiple hour meetings about the gaming project we were working on, and then it seems like he was caring a lot about talking, a lot about having fun ideas, but then when it would come down to like what the actual work would be to make those ideas happen, it's like he's not interested in any of that. He just loves being able to sit and like fantasize and talk, but like none of it is real. And and yeah, that was also a thing within in the company where when there was different things going on earlier on, when there was talks of the card, and Ryan was on that, and another employee who I don't think wants to be mentioned, so I'm not going to mention him, but he was a really successful guy. He's retired now, lives in Hawaii. He was like 50, had 50 years in business, and really successful in places like Figma and Adobe and like all these really big companies. And he came in with a really high level of competence and got meetings set up. And John didn't show up for the meetings with some Safemoon card stuff. And but yeah, he was really great about traveling, hopping on planes, going and speaking at conferences, and trying to accept awards and going and taking interviews, while meanwhile doing really nothing. you know so yeah, it's pretty wild.
The funny thing about that is I think that that's not only limited to crypto. I think that, like for me, I'll think, oh, I have this great idea for this thing. And then when it goes to executing it, a new YouTube channel or something, it's the work that the idea is the fun part and the work's the hard part. And I think that's every single crypto. Oh, I've got this amazing crypto idea. It's going to be insane. It's going to be the next this. We're going to incorporate, food or some kind of technology. And then when it comes to execution, it's almost impossible. It's like, really, you're going to put in all that effort and
Do you think that having such a sycophant army sitting there waiting to excuse just about anything that he did wrong or didn't deliver on only fed that ego?
I mean, that's probably would be anyone to some extent, some people more than others. But yeah, that allows you to know psychologically that you have wiggle room. Hey, we've announced something and not done something 5 times already, and people are still okay with it. We can keep doing that. Of course going to be something I'm sure was in his mind, and I think also internally um, they're having sycophants internally is also the problem. One of person, the people that I had the most problems with would be like Mr. Adult, for instance, where um, he had at one point had like multiple roles. Like I don't even know what his official role was, but he seemed to be giving inputs and everything that he knew nothing about, and would be really good at you know seeming like acting like he was doing a whole bunch to John and coming up with these random ideas that tantalize John's ego and his desire to kind of like talk about all these fantastical things, but then like wouldn't do anything, and but yet pretended like so much was getting done. And I had one occurrence with him where when we were making our internal game studio and then starting to build his project in Unreal Engine 5, he messaged me and he said, "Can we announce that we have a gaming project and we're building a gaming studio?" And I said to him, "Wait a minute, we're in the initial phases of this. There's no reason to announce this yet. Like we should have something built. We should announce once we at least have like an MVP, a minimum viable product built, and then we can hype it up because we know what's in front of us. We know whether we're going to be able to accomplish our goals. We know what the design is fully going to be, and then the community can get excited and help support it from there." His response was, "Well, the problem is I said that we were supposed to have a big announcement this week, and we don't have one, and we need something to announce." And I'm like, and my response back to him was, "Well, wait a minute. What if pretend right now we didn't have a gaming project? What would you do in that scenario?" The truth is you shouldn't have hyped up some big announcement if you don't have a big announcement. You don't just generate bullshit out of the air. There needs to be real stuff that you're announcing that's backed up. There's otherwise the community's getting sick of it, and I wasn't paying like super attention to the community wide stuff at that point. Like I said, I was building my own thing in my own little world. But when I did pop out, everyone I saw the sentiment was like, okay, so much is getting announced, but nothing's happening. And I'm like, why would we be doing more of that? Like, just give me another month and a half to have something to show, and then we can do it. And he wasn't really too happy about that answer. But I was like, well, what, I'm not going to sit around and play the BS game. Like I'm here to build stuff and I'm here to announce real shit if we have real shit. Otherwise, I like these are just weird floofy games people are playing, and it seemed like there was a lot of that going on inside the team. Everyone was very comfortable about just talking about shit, but like when it comes to like really building it, having concrete stuff, boots on the ground, doing the daily and weekly and monthly tasks to really make sure that all of the stuff that's being promulgated is actually like built into real product, that had to be left to other people early on. Ryan, I think, was genuinely attempting different stuff, and he had projects, and then me and my team was doing stuff in the gaming side. At least the wallet team, they were a lot of overseas hired. It's like a small team where they were just doing updates on the wallet, but at least they were updating the wallet. They were doing stuff. But higher up in the company, John and Mr. Adult and Josh and all these other people. It's like in the sales team, it's just a lot of fluff. It was a lot of nothing, and it was very disappointing because of the opportunity that Safemoon had in front of it. The community was large. There's money. You don't need like the position that Safemoon was in, albeit a lot of that money could have just been from the LP or obtained illegally. So there's that. But let's say it wasn't. Let's just pretend it wasn't. That company, SafeMoon, was in a really good position that a lot of other companies aren't in, which is they don't need massive VC investment. They already have a user base. Like there was so much going for it, and it's really sad that there was such a high level of incompetence. Um, and the truth is, things rise and fall based on leadership. If you have good leadership, that flows down. Those leaders make sure things below them are done correctly, and they train people and they encourage people, and they're geared towards um, action and delivery. They're not geared towards talking. If you look at big companies that are actually successful, they're not out sitting and talking all day. They're building, they're doing things. And it seemed like from the top down, it was really the opposite here. There was a lot of talking, and then those leaders were not really ensuring that anything was actually getting done, that things were being built, because there was other incentives on personal levels for them that they were just playing these games and to obtain stuff for themselves. And yeah, it's
I just
unfortunate.
want to ask you a couple more questions, and then we can open it up to everybody else that if they have any questions for an ex-Safeman employee and he wants to answer them, he can continue to. Two of the things real fast is one, I just wanted to establish like the amount of information that was available to you. Was it like similar to just emailing people, or it's not like you're running to people in the getting a coffee in the break room and talking about John? It was more so emails and calls or Discord calls or something.
Yeah, I mean, we we were in calls every day. Like, there was cross pollination of teams, and so yeah, I mean, daily, weekly, there was tons of different calls, or you know, um, bi-weekly and monthly meetings with people, and then we had the Slack, and would all talk in the Slack. But a lot of it was in Discord. Just between different people. Um, so yeah.
And
The
like
other thing, the other
included in
thing is,
like, the
what's
main
that?
meeting, like the main SafeMoon meetings, you were a part of that a lot of the time, or were you like oh, you're the game, you're doing the game, and we'll have a meeting with you about the game, but we're going to not keep you included in the major meetings where we talk about the future of Safe. I just wanted to establish this so that I understood it.
A couple different things about that. Um, that's also the other kind of ineptitude of John is there was such a lack of officialized professional meeting structure. And also, John would not show up for a lot of things anyway. So it wasn't like there was like, professional board meetings where everyone's talking about it was really just these random occurrences of scattered across when it happens, it happens. When things are talked about, they're talked about. Um, and yeah, so that was part of the problem internally. Um, so well, it doesn't matter now. I can say this now. Um, I They accidentally, when I first got hired, gave me access to the entirety of the Trello and the Slack, so I could see literally every channel that I wasn't supposed to see, and I just never mentioned it. so I saw the things that John, when he was building these like idea boards and all these different things, and they were all like 10% finished. Like he would never actually like finish stuff. So I kind of like saw what he was thinking about and what other people were talking about, and also a list of every employee who was hired. So I mean, I can say this now: the numbers that were publicly touted about how many employees were at SafeMoon are complete BS. There was like so much fewer employees than all the other numbers that were out at any given time. So, like this idea that there was tons of teams building tons of things, no, there was like two or three small teams, and that was about the extent of it. And then other people would cycle in and out.
The major thing that I wanted to ask you, and you might have already, I'm sorry if you already told this, but there might be people here that don't, is the general question of like, while you were working there, what was your turning point? And then I would on top of that, I would ask, for a lot of us, when I look back, I'm embarrassed. I'm like, oh man, I was stupid. I was talking about SafeMoon, $1 billion in volume. Like, what is wrong with me? When you look back, being on the inside, is there things that start to click in place?
The only thing that really clicked, that kind of clicks, is I remember this was kind of obvious early on, but you just don't really know what to do with it, and there really is nothing to do with it. It's like government that needs to figure it out, or exactly what's happening right now needs to come in and figure it out, and really siphon through it to figure out what the truth of the matter is. But when I came in, I asked other employees, I was like, "Oh, this is cool. Like, stuff's getting built. I'm, glad to be here. But like, how is SafeMoon making money?" And this was like I don't even remember when this was. This was pretty, like, relatively early days. And there was no real answers. There was kind of like a bunch of mush of answers. And I remember thinking like, well, companies have to have product that has revenue to make money. Like, there's no other way. There's nothing else that can happen unless there's, again, like, venture capital coming from an outside source. And then it was like a week after that the website was updated to where there was like a percentage, where it was basically like a percentage of the fees come to the company. And everyone was basically saying, oh, well, I guess that's how they've been making money. They've been taking a percentage fee. And I was like, well, that's weird that wasn't, I mean, I guess that's fine now that it's mentioned, but like, is that how it always was? Did they mention that before? Like, that was the weird thing to me. Um, but, quite frankly, I was there to build the product that I was building. And that was kind of the extent of where my mind went. I was like, okay, that's weird. Like, but I'm here to build this. And if there is some shenanigans, someone's going to sort it out. I don't really, there's really nothing else to be done about it. So.
Hey, Zuby, could I ask you a question?
Sure.
So you noticed all this stuff going on, right? How long ago did you notice this bullshit going on?
Do you mean like internally, like incompetence of John and company being run
Yeah,
poorly?
the things that you just spoke about.
Oh, day one. Like, when I first got hired there, I
Mm-hmm.
had been building a year and a half, like,
Mm-hmm.
hiring devs and building my game for a year and a half.
Gotcha.
So I was in startup mode.
Mm,
I was like startup company mode, and I came in and I'm
right,
like, this is a startup company. And then when I'm looking around and I'm like, uh, why is there so much disorganization? Why are people seeming to kind of be really slow with things or not get
right,
things done? Why, if I try to push for high quality with what, like, the early on with
right,
Mooncraft, I came into the team and was like, hey, here's some stuff that really needs to be higher quality for what we're putting out, especially to the audience.
right.
And there was kind of like this, like, oh, whatever mentality. So yeah, it was early on.
So you felt that there was shenanigans going on, correct?
Well, shenanigans in regard to the company being run poorly and
Mm,
people not caring.
right.
Yes. When it comes to like funds and stuff, what I just mentioned as far as like the website,
Mhm.
updating and all of that, but other than that, it was kind of like I have no idea the truth about the LP things and whatever. Yeah,
Right. And how long did you stay with them?
I was 2 years, 2 years, 1 month, I
Bro,
think is
Zuby,
was.
could I ask you a question? Did you give anybody warnings about this stuff or no?
Warnings about what was
I
going
mean,
on internally.
what you was witnessing, what you was seeing. I mean, you know what I mean?
I tried to fix internally, because that's what people do if they're at a company. You talk to other employees and try and make them be better employees.
He's also
Um, yeah.
it's his job, and he's under an NDA the entire time. And I'll say this real fast, sorry, Zuby, is that even Ryan, who was like second hand to John, did not think that fraud was happening. It wasn't until CoffeeZilla put out that information that
Mm.
we could see blockchain, because he was hiding where he got his money from. Nobody knew. Nobody knew that he was doing it through Bitmart and that he was doing all that, as far as I know.
Well, this is just my opinion here. If you're there, you're working there, and you see stuff going on, and something is bothering you, I mean, come on, man. I would have just fucking spilled the fucking beans, let the people know. I would have get the fuck out of there myself.
Well, sure. If there was financial impropriety, 1,000%. If I saw any evidence ever
Right.
of
I got
illegal
you.
activity, Damn right. But think about any company that's existing. You go in, and some companies are run better than others. Some companies have more competent employees than others. And you never hear people get hired at a company. Like, you don't hear people get hired at Microsoft, and then they come out and they go, everyone, don't participate in Microsoft because they have horrible, these internal leaders are horrible. It's like, unless there's a legal or really bad activity going on that you
Gotcha.
see, it's your job as an employee to rise the bar of everyone else around you and to do your job and to build your product
Right.
the best that you can.
No,
And
I
that's
got.
kind of the extent,
No, I understand. But if you did have the proof, you would have spilled the beans. That's guaranteed.
If you just think it's incompetent, you're working there, you don't see any fraud. It's not like that is a piece of information that's hidden from everybody outside. We all had the clues that there was incompetence going on. This team leaving after team leaving. Everybody who leaves doesn't have anything good to say about John for the most part, new things, and yet nothing's being delivered on. And he keeps deceiving us about what's really going on as far as the team leaving, because he preferred to keep people believing that Thomas was going to stay there to save the price than he did the investors' bags, knowing the truth that he literally asked Thomas to basically take a secondary role where he didn't have to do anything, to pretend to be on the team, and Thomas just wanted out. And they deceived the investors there into saving the price instead of taking that massive hit that it would have taken if they had just admitted the truth that Thomas had left.
The most worst part is everyone seen there was garbage going on and bullshit, and people kept shilling it. People kept buying it. People kept, you know what I mean? That's the horrible part. That they kept on buying and shilling. It's going to the moon. This, that, bullshit. A lot of the holders was how do I explain, man? It's a shame. A lot of people lost their money, man. It's terrible. But look, it is what it is. People knew that it was going down, and people kept praising Safemoon and this and that. You know what I mean? Just trying to build their own bags. That's all.